people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood. Say, who are the people in your neighborhood? The people that you meet each day.
Hi boys and girls, welcome to Turn the Page Tuesdays. So now that it's almost time for bed, make sure that you take care of all of those bedtime routines. Parents, now's the time to pause your device for the children to be able to go ahead and do that.
Hi boys and girls, today we are at 3rd Street and Market Street, which is the corner right in downtown Oxford. And I am with Mrs. Gail Roberts, who is the Oxford Area Historical Society President. And Mrs. Roberts, can you tell us what we're doing here today?
Well, the Oxford Area Historical Association studies the history of Oxford, and we can learn a lot from history. It's interesting, and it's really nice to know about the people that developed our community and how it took its shape. And we're standing right here because, as Dr. Hamburg mentioned, this is 3rd Street and Market Street, and this is where Oxford actually began. The first building in Oxford was actually where the Oxford Hotel is now. It was known as Hayes Tavern. A tavern is a place where you can go to rest and get something to eat. And Hayes Tavern was a 2-story log building, and it had a barn and a stable, and it was built in 1754. That's over 260 years ago. And eventually it was named Hood's Tavern. Now, if you looked at a really old map of Oxford, you would see that this area was called Hood's Crossing because of Hood's Tavern. And eventually it became known as Oxford Crossing and the village of Oxford, and then wasn't officially named Oxford until 1838. There are also some other historic buildings right on this corner. The Presbyterian Church, that probably most of the boys and girls would recognize because you see its tall steeple as you travel into town, a beautiful church, that actually started in the same year as the Hood's Tavern, and it was 1754, but that church was actually on what we call the green, that grassy area over there across from the Presbyterian Church. It also started as a log cabin. Later, about 20 years later, they had a brick building there, and then eventually moved across the street where you see the church now. The church, unfortunately, suffered a couple fires, so it's had to be rebuilt, but they did save the steeple. Here's the Oxford Hall. That was built in 1864. A group of citizens of Oxford got together because they wanted to have a place where people could come for entertainment. So the second floor was built as a big open space where they could have musical productions, for example. And so that has been fixed up nicely and remodeled on the outside to look like it used to look. Down the street this way is the Masonic building where you can see the Liberty Tax Service sign. That used to be a farmer's market. It has housed our post office in the past, our library in the past, and many other businesses.
Boys and girls, this is fascinating. This is where you live in Oxford, Pennsylvania. So much history here. We're going to take a walk to the Oxford Historical Society building, which is right down 3rd Street and up Locust, right near the post office. So we're going to do that now and see what's inside. Boys and girls, we are on Locust Street right now, and if you look right there, you'd see the post office. We are in front of the Oxford Area Historical Society.
We're the Oxford Area Historical Association, but we're known as Oaha because of our initials.
Mrs. Roberts, can you tell us what happens in this building?
Well, first off, we are a non-profit organization. We exist to provide a service to the community. And what we do is study Oxford history. What we do inside this building is we collect things concerning Oxford's history. People make donations to us. We get old newspapers, We get pictures, paintings, maps, books, objects. We get people's journals that they've written, letters that they've written, business records, all those kinds of things. We have volunteers that write down information on forms that we have. When these donations are made, we put all the information in file folders and keep them in here. So if people come in and they have a question, say about the Oxford Hall, then we can go into our computer and do a search and find the files that we have on the Oxford Hall. Right now we have over 3,000 items entered into our computer. Another thing that we do is we actually we interview people. So we try to find some citizens that have lived in Oxford a long time and ask them questions about what it was like to grow up in Oxford. And so we have tapes inside. We also do programs where we invite different speakers to come and talk about local history, and we keep recordings of those programs so people can come in and watch them. Now we're inside our building, the Oxford Area Historical Association, and I'm going to show you a few things that we have in what we call our archives collection. This is a picture of that Oxford Hotel that we were standing in front of on the street, and this picture was taken about the year 1900, so you can see what it looked like then. Over here, we have two pictures of what was known as the Hopewell School. Now, when I first started teaching in Oxford, the Hopewell School still existed. And it originally was a place where elementary and high school students both they all went to school in the same building. And it had a bell on the top of it. This building had to be torn down because it wasn't in very good shape. When they tore this building down, they saved the bell. And you can see near Jordan Bank School today a bell tower monument that was actually our historical association was involved in building that monument and saving that bell.
So boys and girls, as Mrs. Roberts was talking, the Hopewell School used to sit exactly where you play on the playground. Right there on the playground was an old school building, which was known as the Hopewell School. And the bell Mrs. Roberts was talking about, you ring that every single day with Mr. Morrison. So every single day you go out and use that pole, you are actually ringing the old Hopewell School bell.
One of the things that we've just gotten into our archives collection is this old schoolhouse desk that was actually used in the Oxford schools. I don't have a lot of details about it yet since it just came in, but one thing you will notice is that it has an inkwell. That glass jar was used to put ink in there, and students had to take their pens, dip their pens into the inkwell, and then they were able to write. And the desktop lifts up so they could store things inside, and the chair is attached to the desk. Over here, we have a display on the Oxford Fairgrounds, and they started in 1870 and went to the year 1915. And at these fairs, you could see farm animals like cows and horses and donkeys and sheep, and you could see fruits and vegetables that had been grown in the Oxford area. But another thing that was really interesting is that we had a racetrack in Oxford. And that it wasn't where jockeys ride a horse, but these were harness racing horses that pulled a sulky, a cart. And this fairgrounds was located near where the street Park Street is today. And people took trains to get here to come to the Oxford Fair. Well, we talked about that Oxford had a fair. Oxford also had circuses in town, and these are a couple circus posters. This is an old cash register. It used to be used at Simon's clothing store, which was on 3rd Street. And I just wanted you to see how different a cash register looks from those that we have today. You can see these large buttons where store clerks would use to punch in the price of an item, and then they would use it to make change and pull out the drawer. That's where the money was kept. One more interesting item we have in here is this telephone switchboard. This was used in the Penn Fuel Gas Company. In those days, and you can see a picture here of telephone operators, if somebody called the Penn Fuel Gas Company, the operator actually had to sit at this switchboard and move wires from one place to another in order to connect the caller to the person that they wanted to speak to. Boys and girls, we use reading and writing a lot here and computer skills. And I used to be a reading teacher, so I love reading. Today I'm going to share a book called The Rocking Horse Christmas by Mary Pope Osborne. The boy found the rocking horse under the tree. He pushed it softly and made it rock. "I'll call you Shadow," he said. Then he climbed on Shadow's back and they took off. They rocked to the west and lassoed an outlaw. They rocked to the east and jousted with knights. They rocked all Christmas Day. Then the boy carried Shadow up to his room. He made a little stall beside his bed and fed Shadow some hay. Shadow and the boy rocked together day after day. They went on a safari on an African plain. They raced Seattle Slew in the Kentucky Derby. They rode to the land of dinosaurs and fought a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Every night before sleep, the boy touched Shadow's mane. "Ride you tomorrow," he'd whisper. But as the boy grew older, he didn't ride Shadow as much. And then days and weeks and months went by when he didn't ride Shadow at all. Hour after hour, the rocking horse stood still, waiting to rock while the clock ticked away. "I know how you feel," said the old bear, who now stared sadly into space. One day, someone picked Shadow up and carried him to the attic. There he grew dusty and frail. A spider strung a web between his ears. "You must have been a great horse once," she said. Year after year, the rocking horse stared out the window looking for his boy. Sometimes he saw a boy playing catch in the yard or riding a bike down the street. But this boy was much taller than his boy. Once he saw a young man who looked a bit like his boy load a car and drive away. Another time he saw a man visit with a woman and a baby. Brown leaves fell, green leaves returned, but Shadow's boy never came back. Then one year on Christmas Eve, a blizzard struck. Glass broke, and the winds knocked Shadow over. Soon he was covered with a blanket of snow, and his spirit began to fade. Suddenly, the hatch door opened, and light streamed in. Then Shadow heard something he hadn't heard in a long time, a boy's voice. "Look, Dad," the boy said, "the storm broke the window." "Watch out for glass," a man said. He knelt down. "Hey, look at this." "What is it, Dad?" The man wiped the snow from Shadow's head. Shadow looked into the man's eyes and knew at once who he was. "He's my oldest friend in the world," the man said. The man carried the rocking horse downstairs. They made a little stall in the dining room and fed him some hay. "What's his name, Dad?" the boy asked. "Shadow," the man said. "Hi, Shadow," the boy whispered. Then he climbed on Shadow's back. "Giddy up," he said. At first Shadow was creaky, but then his heart took a leap. And he and the boy rocked away, and they flew through the sky all Christmas Eve and didn't come home. until dawn. So it makes me think of how people have found things in their attic, and they relate to Oxford history, and they don't know that they want to keep them anymore, and they bring them here and donate them to Oaha, and we can use them to help study Oxford history. So.
I hope you enjoyed that book by our special guest. Now it's time for bed. Good night, everyone. We'll see you in the morning.